meeting John Young today at Chancery Lane Gallery. John, can you please tell us about the exhibition, the name of the exhibition, why calling it Macau Days, and how does this work fit in your series of work?
The Macau Days is in a way a tribute to the old Macau. Macau's got the longest history as a sort of a Western settlement in Asia, stretching back to 1552. So it's probably the longest colony or province, whichever way you look at it. So that's one of the reasons why I was interested, and many significant people actually went through Macau who were early transcultural figures. I picked that because I am looking at histories, and in particular the history of benevolence. I have looked at the history of violence as well, like the Nanjing Massacre project, but in this case it's more like the history of benevolence of people that went through.
Can you please tell us what composed this exhibition?
The exhibition, the format of the exhibition that I do is quite similar nowadays, where I have a bank of drawings, which comprises of images as well as blackboard drawings. Those blackboard drawings, the way of doing it was actually inspired by the drawings of Joseph Beuys and Rudolf Steiner. And these drawings sort of have a whole history of ideas in them. They evoke a certain history of ideas in a relatively didactic way, and from there I developed different streams of narratives, which is then applied to the paintings that I do in the exhibition. So sometimes there will be paintings, large paintings, small paintings, maybe in the future also screen work, wall work, video work that is associated with the bank of drawings initially.
So in Macau Days you have two sets of paintings. You have the tribute to Mazu and another set of paintings called Macau and Marienbad. Can you please describe each set?
Yes, the Mazu, there's this series of paintings, the Mazu Goddess of the Sea painting, which is actually a tribute to a very significant deity in Chinese mythology. But in fact, Mazu was a real figure. She lived in the Tang Dynasty. And she is the goddess for fishermen and seafarers, and in that sense it's basically a narrative about the way how she saved people and ended up in drowning herself. The other large paintings, painting is one called Marienbad. Marienbad is for me, an analogy to Macanese miscegenation, in the way how the interior of that painting is actually an interior that is owned by a Portuguese man who's married to a Chinese woman, and the delirious sort of decorations they have for the plates on the walls bring up this whole idea that culture overlaid with more culture, and the deliriousness that it entails really interests me. The paradoxes, the human irony related with transculturalism really interests me. And as a result, it reminded me of a film called last year in Marienbad, with Alain Resnais's film, where there are three characters and they don't exactly know where they are or where they are. What time they're in, and so I thought that was a very nice analogy. There's that level, and then there's another level which is it's almost like the casino. Macau's now got 38 casinos, And to me, I went there again a few days ago, standing at the MGM and looking down at the casino, very cheesy sort of interior. Reminds me very much of a contemporary art world now. You know, all the different people gambling down the bottom, and which I think there's something political that I'm trying to allude to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Would you say what is the importance of history and archiving to your work? You use it critically, or you use it as an inspiration?
Using histories?
Yes.
And
archives.
And archives. It depends, because I am looking at history as a rhetoric, and so there are different ways in which I use history. For example, in the safety zone, the exhibition that I did about the 21 foreigners who saved 200,000 to 300,000 Chinese citizens in the Nanjing massacre in 1937. That was fairly much a factual sort of account with first-person voices, which I sort of affect in the drawings of the people that experienced this massacre. However, then later on I did another show called A New Wolf of Rome in Brisbane, which was more allegorical. It's a reinterpretation of the Wolf of Rome allegory. So I'm looking at sort of like different ways in which we can reconfigure historical rhetoric now, because I think that one thing that I find is not, I guess, not my cup of tea is the ahistoricalness of and just the flat sociological levels that we're dealing with art at the moment. I really like to reach deep into deep time and different rhetorics of history.
So do you think an artist today has almost a responsibility just to act as a go-between to represent the history and culture to...
Yeah, and I also feel, like you're saying, that, to identify the DNA of the Macanese, sort of like time. And also, I was only, talking to a friend over afternoon tea, and she said that in Hong Kong, she lost her wallet, and her wallet was actually returned to her a few days ago after she lost it, with money in it and everything. And I think that this is a society in this case of benevolence by somebody who didn't want to know their identity, but these are good sort of levels of sort of the social and history that I would really like to draw attention to. I think that we went through quite a level of post-irony and post-prestige in postmodernism, down to commoditization, and now this idea of relational aesthetics, about talking. I would think that these works are the complete opposite of relational aesthetics. I would think that these works is trying to find a voice. There are people that say once upon a time art is the definition of art.
Right.
But then somebody said it's the institution that is defining the definition of art. Well, I think that even if that may be the case, I think that I would like to provide a different voice that is not just about communication, but really a bit more of not exactly didactic, but a bit more a voice to allow the voice to draw attention to certain things in history, which may be lost otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So you're you're born in Hong Kong, but you live in Melbourne. And you've been tackling a history of China through the Nanjing massacre and then Macau. So do you think you're just going around the pot and next you'll look at your hometown, which is Hong Kong?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. I guess the thing is that with Hong Kong, I don't have as much distance to it as I do with Macau or like the Bonhoeffer project. or even with Nanjing massacre, quite often I look at an event which is at a distance, but then I try to affect it, sort of gain some empathy. And it's a bit harder for me to look at Hong Kong, which I would love to one day, because I'm very close to it, but certainly the history of Hong Kong will be something. But my next project will be the history of the Chinese in Australia. That would be the area that I'll be dealing with.
Do you consider yourself as a scholar in your approach?
Sorry?
Are you a scholar?
Am I a scholar? No, I'm not a scholar. I'm more like I would love to be a sort of a storyteller in the end, but a storyteller of broken stories. I like Seabold a lot, reading Seabold, and I also like the poet Kenneth White, who is actually a Scottish living in France. But wherever he goes, he writes these beautiful geopolitical poems about the world and drawing in all the different histories and philosophies from China to Japan to Brittany, depending where he is. And I like this idea of memory and being able to draw those beautiful texts in the accounts. So
you're an enlightened illiterate man, and yet you're a conceptual artist. So when did you become a conceptual artist?
I became a conceptual artist. I think it's when I went to art school, conceptualism was very mature, and it was really, by the time when I was at art school, it was the art debates, and it was Solowit. But before then, I was also interested in art language and the writings, but I felt that a lot of conceptualism really was a self-defining thing, because philosophically it actually wasn't. If you look at it from real philosophical points of view, it was actually not rigorous. It was really a publicity, for artists trying to define art. And then I worked very closely with an Australian artist called Imants Tillers, and he taught me a lot of conceptual techniques which were age-old things from Cyrillia's days, like synchronicity and synchronistic techniques and so on and so forth, which were really from Plicabia and people like that are actually conceptual techniques. And Tillers was also Duchampian, but really my tendency is a little bit more conceptual, minimal, more sort of, I guess, not as Duchampian as Tillers. There's a slightly cynical edge to Duchamp that I'm a little bit, a little bit weary of. But then we launched into conceptual painting in the 80s, and of course, conceptual painting dovetailed with deconstruction, and appropriation was a very different time. It was really looking at the syntax of the painting, and it was looking at how a painting is built, how it's put together. And now I feel that I have developed this particular area in my own work, and so I'm concentrating more on, instead of speaking in words or sentences, I can speak in paragraphs now. This is the difference 20 years on my practice. Yeah.
Great. And I got last question. How did you use computer-generated images and new media and technology in your work?
Yeah.
The last few years?
Yeah. I love, like I was saying before, I'm basically looking at the history of benevolence and violence through a Jurassic technology like painting. And but yet doesn't mean that I'm not contemporary. I like to affect and keep on going, be quite conservative to conserve painting techniques. So I use that, but the way how I compose is very technological. I compose on the computer, and as you can see with the paintings, a lot of it is actually has a deep amount of ordinary everyday technology used in these paintings. I'm not a slick techno artist that go past the general populace in the way how they use computers. I just use computers that everybody else has. But nonetheless, it's not backward in the sense that I don't use it. It's not. So the technology is in a way sitting in the back rather than in the front of the work, because I do like that haptic level of touch, and it's the eyes, the texture on the eyes of these paintings are still there. Of course, I don't use gesture. I don't use anything that is like the master artist, the stroke of the master artist or anything like that. But it's still traditional painting techniques. I still love Fontaine Latour. I still love all those artists, and so that's why the construction of the paintings have those two ends to it.